essentially what it means is the following. It refers to a certain concept. That concept tells us why God created the entire world itself. It's all encapsulated in these two words, Nam D'Ksufa. Nam D'Ksufa means literally bread of shame, meaning the following. The Ribono Shel Olam, the one who created all existence, assessed the following type of objectives. The Ribono Shel Olam had determined that in creating Olam Haba, what exactly is Olam Haba? Now, I am not familiar with the level of the new people, and I'm going to have to assume certain things. If you have any problems, you'll have to ask me later, or if you continue as I get to know you, I'll know how to accommodate your particular level. I don't know if you'll even understand the Hebrew words that I use, so you'll have to bear with me at this point in time. The Ribono Shel Olam created neshamas. And neshama, of course, is, if you don't know a word, you just indicate it with your hand. You don't have to say anything, just put your hand up and I'll know that I should translate that word. It'll give me an idea of where we're holding. The Ribono Shel Olam, God, created neshama, soul. And his essential reason for creating them was to create a place, a certain situation, a certain condition, where he would give them eternal existence in an ecstatic state. That is a very simple remark, a very simple statement of enormous implications. We have discussed many times to some degree what that means. But whether you know it or not, whether you can identify it or not, all of us were created for one specific purpose. The Ribono Shel Olam created that which was outside of him. He created another being called the human soul, in order to make that soul the recipient of a place called Olam Haba, the recipient of a future condition which would be eternal, simcha, happiness, and ecstasy. The Ribono Shel Olam knew, and we spoke a little bit why, that he would not just give the neshama this condition. In other words, the Ribono Shel Olam did not just create the neshama and say, wait a minute, I'm going to give you Olam Haba. Here, now you're in Olam Haba, now I want you to understand it, I want you to be in this condition of great joy. Because the Ribono Shel Olam knew by the nature of the neshama itself that the neshama would never tolerate this condition. Why is that? Since the neshama was created in the image of God, meaning that the neshama is a being which has the capacity for self-awareness. It knows that it is, and it knows itself in contrast to God. It is aware that it is. It is not just an object, it is a subject. It is a being which has the capacity for awareness of self. That is the reflection of God. Because just like God is aware of himself, he gave to the neshama its ability not to be an object, like a chair or stone or any object, but he gave it the ability of the capacity of self-awareness. Having that capacity gives the neshama a certain similitude or reflection to God himself. Having that kind of similitude puts the neshama in a very awkward position. God, in essence, is not a taker. God cannot take anything. God cannot receive. Why? Because since the Ribono Shel Olam is the essence of existence itself, he is identical to the process of existence. He is everything that there is. He has everything which he needs, even his own existence, because he is his own existence. Now, I'm not going to go into the meaning that is a very difficult shum that we gave in the past, and I'm going to avoid or ignore the technical meaning of what that means, that God is his own existence. But basically, the essence of God's divinity, the one word which defines God and makes him to be what he is in the word independence. God is an absolutely independent being. God does not need anything or anyone outside of him. God does not even need existence, because the Ribono Shel Olam was not given his existence by someone else. We were created. We were given existence. The Ribono Shel Olam was not given existence. So where did the Ribono Shel Olam take it from? The Ribono Shel Olam is the process of existence itself. He is the act of being. Now, the nature of that type of entity is a very difficult one to understand. And like I say, I spent many hours on this topic, and there are tapes and there are Passion which you can catch up on. Suffice to say that the Rebbeinu Shalom is absolutely independent. God is a giver. He can only give. He cannot take. Because if you are independent, you need nothing. You can only therefore give. In its ultimate sense, God is not even a giver. But that's a different philosophical term. Minimally, at least the way we can understand, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives. He is a creator. He is a producer. He is a giver. He created a soul. By definition, the neshama was created. It is a taker. It is a recipient. It is in Hebrew a makabel. It is a mushba. Why? Because it was given its existence. Its fundamental reason for being, its fundamental possibility of being, is in the notion that it takes. It receives. Therefore, when the Rebbeinu Shalom created the neshama, he intended to put it into Olam Haba, a place of great ecstasy, and to receive this great ecstasy. What was this great ecstasy? What is the condition of Olam Haba, which is so incredible? It's the perception and awareness of God Himself. That is the greatest possible perception. Why? Again, I cannot go into it length, but I can only say, to encapsulate the basic idea, the following. Since the Rebbeinu Shalom is absolute independence and He is existence itself, He retains the quality of beauty. If you want to describe God, you can say it in the following words. God is a being who has what's called absolute perfection. And since He has absolute perfection, He is absolutely beautiful. If you could picture something which is beautiful in the most infinite way, if such a thing were possible. For example, if you hear music and you listen to the music and you say to yourself, is there a kind of music that I could listen to which is so extraordinary as to be almost the height of expression or feeling that this medium can give? Is there such a music? Given the music of Beethoven, Mozart, the greatest composers of the world, is there a theoretical construction of notes and tones which can produce the highest type of feeling which is capable through this medium called music? The answer is yes. We do not know what that music is. We do not. But there exists a kind of music which can literally wake up the dead. And the truth of the matter is, just to mention this point, is that there was once a time in the Beit HaMikdash when the Leviim used to sing Shira. They used to sing the songs as they were doing the Kabbalah in the Beit HaMikdash. There was a certain type of hymn, a certain type of music that was played and sung. And the Vilna Gaon says, we do not have access to that music, or even what we don't not even know what it was like. But the Vilna Gaon says that that music had the ability, because of its unique construction and its tonal arrangement, to be Machaya Mesim. An extraordinary thing. Now, how that works is something much later on. We will have a shir on music much later on to explain how such a thing is even possible. But what we're talking about here is music in its most beautiful form, or maybe art in its most beautiful form. The Rebbeinu Shalom is the quintessence of beauty itself. Hence, to perceive Him, to be aware of Him, is to be aware of absolute beauty. There can be no greater simcha than simply to be aware of God. This is Olam Haba. This may sound to you like an abstraction. It may sound to you like a very strange situation. What does that mean? How can I get high or get turned on the perception of another being? To answer that, you'd have to understand what the nature of beauty is. You'd have to understand the nature of yichud. We had a whole shir last week and many things is on what the essence of beauty is, what the essence of taiva, what the essence of pleasure is. That pleasure itself basically is connected to a concept called yichud and so on. But like I say, that's something we went to a different point in time. Since the neshama, who is in essence a taker, is similar to God, because it has that capacity of self-awareness, there's a strange problem. The neshama has an aspect of giving, just like God does. To the degree that it is a reflection of God, to that degree it shares the property of God, so to speak, that it can only give and not take. Hence, if God were to take the neshama and put it into Olam Haba, the neshama would stay there, it would perceive the absolute beauty of God, it would be in a state of ecstasy, but it would feel totally rotten about that state. It would feel uncomfortable, uneasy, it would feel tense. It would not be able to tolerate this position. Why not? Because it would be in a position of complete reception, and the neshama is not an antenna. It would insist, it would say to the Baruch Shem, I cannot just sit here and receive. I must contribute in some way to my present condition. Since I have the reflection of a creator, I must create. Since I have the similitude of a producer, of a giver, in some way I must also give and produce. Therefore, in some way, I must contribute and be responsible for the position which I am in. What does the Baruch Shem do? So the Baruch Shem says, yes. I will therefore create for you a condition, or a situation, a circumstance rather, where you will actually earn your Olam Haba. I will not give it to you gratis. I will not simply put you in a position or in a condition and say, here it is, enjoy it, because you're not capable of doing it. You must in some way contribute to that position. So I will allow you to contribute to that position. What will I do? I will create a circumstance or a situation, and I will put you into that situation, and I will create in you the seeds of conflict, and I will force you to choose. You will choose that situation, or you will not choose that situation. You will rather choose a different situation. And on the basis of your choice, you will create the situation by your very choice. That is what this world is all about. And what that word is contained is the word Nam L'Ksufa. Nam L'Ksufa refers to the effort or the necessity that the neshama must have in order to acquire Olam Hazeh. Nam L'Ksufa is the reason, the motif, and the theme of this world as we know it. What's that? Olam Hazeh. Nam L'Ksufa demands the existence of Olam Hazeh so that the neshama can earn Olam Haba. Right. Okay, that's my basic review. That's the concession to the Olam. That's the concession to the new people. Now let me go back to the and so on. But that doesn't mean you're losing it. I just have to be very careful here. We have a problem here. We have a logistical problem. And the problem is, how do we create a test situation? How do we create a circumstance in which a person literally earns Olam Haba? That's what the Baruch Shem is dealing with. And what the Baruch Shem does is a very interesting thing. What in essence is Olam Haba? As you said, Olam Haba is a place or a position which has a clear recognition to the extent that a neshama is possible, to the extent that a yesof is possible, or a being which is created of the Baruch Shem. What is the aspect of the Baruch Shem that is being observed? And let me just give this also another review on this because it's critical to understand. Is yichud. What is yichud? What are we talking about? And I must spend 5 minutes on this because it is one of the most vital ideas in all of Hashkafa. Indeed, it's one of the most subtle ones. The Baruch Shem is the essence of existence itself. And the Baruch Shem, therefore, is perfection. It's the awareness of that perfection which is our simcha. But the Baruch Shem has many qualities about him. The Baruch Shem therefore chose one aspect of his being, and he made that aspect of his being the critical theme or focus of all existence as we know it. All existence as we know it. It is not possible for us to go beyond this focus which he created. The implication of this is far more vaster than I can say now. But eventually you will understand what we mean. What is the focus of all existence itself? The focus of all existence itself is yichud. What is this yichud? His yichud means his unity, God's unity. The Rebbe did a strange thing. It's an incredible thing, really. And we're going to have to use some kind of human language to describe it. It's not a literal thing, because the Rebbe did not literally do this to himself. But as far as we see, it's almost as if he did this. Imagine a masterpiece of painting. An absolute masterpiece. You can tell me whoever you want. Whatever it is. I don't know, the greatest, or Rembrandt, or whatever, a Rubens, whatever it is, whoever it is, whoever your favorite painter is. I'm not a great, bucky in art, but let's say a Rembrandt, The Night Watch. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's one of the most greatest paintings. It's a very large painting. Let's say we took this painting and we did a very strange thing to it. We cut it up into pieces and we made it into a jigsaw puzzle. We took the actual painting itself. Now the actual painting itself is something in the area of, I think, I've seen it in Amsterdam, it's about 10 feet by 10 feet. It's a huge, it takes up an entire wall. It's his most famous painting. Let's say we took that and we cut it up into pieces, and what we did was each piece was, let's say, 2 inches by 2 inches. Right? We did that, but in some way by doing that, we didn't affect the picture as a whole. You see? And there was no paint with chips or anything like that. We were able to perfectly cut the thing up into squares of 2 pieces. And we have all these squares here. We take them and we put in a box. And I say to you, put together that puzzle. And when you put together that puzzle, what is behind that puzzle is an absolute masterpiece. So you say to me, fine. Now, you are of course a connoisseur of art. You're not just a person I picked on the street. You are a very great connoisseur of art. So you're the kind of person who would appreciate this particular endeavor. What do? Take all the pieces and you start putting together. Now, the ultimate goal is to have the entire picture. But does that mean that you will not see the greatness of Rembrandt until you have the entire thing in front of you? No. Because even as you begin to put together some pieces, you will begin to see certain segments or fractions of the masterpiece. As soon as you see, for example, a human face, you will literally stand back in awe and say, my God, look at the way he's drawn this human face. As soon as you see the sword and you see the moonlight on the sword, you will understand that it's a sword, and you will understand the incredible reproduction of that natural effect. You will appreciate with great reverence every segment of that addition. Do we see what I'm saying? That's exactly what the Rebbe did, Kaviyachol, with his own service. He made it into a jigsaw puzzle. Now, where does the simcha come from? I will explain this point. Where does the simcha come from? Where does the pleasure come from? Does the pleasure come from eventually having the whole painting in one piece? Yes. That's the ultimate goal, you see. But all along the way, as you combine, as you connect piece to piece, and you see more and more of the whole thing, you have a tremendous ecstasy all along the way. You see, you don't have to wait to the end. What the Rebbe did was, he took an aspect of his being and fragmented it. He shattered it into fragments, you see. And basically, what our work is, and what our job, and what Olam Haba is nothing more than the activity of putting together a crossword puzzle. That is another very simple way of looking at Olam Haba. That's a very strange way to look at Olam Haba. You probably think that this is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard of it. Olam Haba describes the jigsaw puzzle. But it is a jigsaw puzzle in the sense that Olam Haba is nothing more than the continuous awareness of God's yichud. What is yichud? Yichud means that God is one. But how do we appreciate His unity? How do we appreciate that absolute unity to the extent that we can see it or know it? We cannot know God's unity in and of itself. We cannot understand, we cannot conceive of the real essence of God. He is unknowable. And I've explained it because since He is a being who is absolute existence itself, we cannot know what that type of entity He is. But what the Baruch Hashem can do is the following. He can draw a painting, you see, and fragment that painting, so that we may never know the painter, but we can know the painting. And as we put it together, we can have some glimpse of who that painter was. That is our simcha. What did the Baruch Hashem do? He created a universe. He created an existence. The universe that we see and the universe we do not see. And He fragmented it in a certain way. And what He said to us, essentially, is the following. I want you to understand how from a series of many fragmented pieces, that it's really one piece. I want you to know, you see, that all these pieces is a reflection of one being, of one painter. I don't want you to think when you look at all these pieces that these different pieces are products of different painters, but I want you to know they come from one masterpiece. It is the process or the quest for that kind of understanding which is the essence of Olam Haba and the essence of Olam Haba itself. What do I mean? Ultimately, Olam Haba, that future state, is nothing more than a process of seeing God's unity to a greater and greater extent. That's essentially what it is. And this process goes on for eternity. We will never reach the level where we suddenly grasp the unity of God in its essence. That's not possible. But we will always be involved in the process. And it is the process itself which is the ecstatic state. What the Baruch Hashem says is the following. I will allow you to participate in this future process, to see me, or an aspect of me as I am, and I will allow you to be in a condition where you will be in this kind of state, where every aspect of your existence will be nothing more than a reflection and the ability to come closer and closer to the understanding of who I am, which is absolute beauty itself. But you must be worthy of that process. You must be worthy of that process itself. So what does the Baruch Hashem do? What He said is, I will make you work for it. How? I will put you into the very self-same process right now. In other words, you are living, correct? We all live on this world. You don't understand it and you don't realize it. And it would take me a while, not necessarily a long while, to show you that your living process, your very existence, reflects or is preoccupied with a certain type of process which completely is beyond you. You don't even know the essential process in which you are preoccupied with. That's how subtle the thing is. What process are you preoccupied with? You are preoccupied with establishing the unity of God. That is the essence of your life. Now, forget about Olam Haba. Forget about it. Right now, when you live in your apartment, when you have a job, when you have a family, whatever you have, the essential ingredient or the essential theme of your life is nothing more than a process of His yichud. What am I talking about? And essentially, it is this yichud which you are involved now, which will determine whether or not you will be involved in that yichud in the future time. In other words, God doesn't say, I have a great reward for you, and I want you to do a task to determine whether or not you are deserving of that reward. And the Baruch Hashem does not create one reward and a task, and the two have nothing to do with each other, you see. It's not like, for example, where I say to you, I want you to do something. I want you to take these chairs, and I want you to move it to the other end of the room. And if you do that, I will give you a set of sperm. No, that's all right. But the reward has nothing to do with the task. Moving the chairs has nothing to do with the set of sperm. What the Buddha says to you is the following. I want to give you an involvement, a preoccupation in the contemplation of my yichud. But I want you to work for it. What will I do? I will let you become involved in the contemplation of my yichud now. And to the degree that you are successful in it, to that degree you will be involved in the same process later on. We all understand the basic idea, but it's a very deep mystery of what I'm talking about. You may understand me generally, but what am I talking about specifically? This is something that I had mentioned last week and a number of times before, and again I have to recapitulate this now. Let's examine your physical life. Let's examine your physical life. There are many things you do with physical life. There are many involvements. And there are certain things which bring you pleasure. There are aspects of your physical and emotional life which bring you pleasure. If you analyze the structure of these specific type of pleasure processes, you will notice an interesting thing. For example, the world of thought. The world of thought. Many of us read, we think. We have pleasure from our thinking. We understand new ideas. We learn new information. We're fascinated by different concepts. But if you think for 1 minute, what is the ingredient which gives me the pleasure of thought? You will see it's an interesting thing. It is the fact that you can see an inner unity or harmony or the critical essential principle behind many, many separate facts. That's what gives you pleasure. If you're a thinker of any sort, or if you read something and you think, wait a minute, now I understand it. What have you just said? What you've said is, now I see the unifying idea behind these factual information which I thought was separate. Now I see the critical principle behind all these different facts and events which I thought had nothing to do with each other. I see that there's an inner harmony. There's a unity in this thing. I see there's what's called a conceptual structure. Whether you learn history, science, mathematics, no matter what you learn, Torah, no matter what you learn, no matter what goes into that mind of yours, no matter what is amenable or is received by the logical processes, the mind always seeks to establish unity. It seeks to take many facts or many ideas and rearrange them to see their cohesion, to see their balance, to see their integration. And it's with the attainment of that objective that gives you, now I understand. That's where that simcha comes from. But what is that process? That's the process of unity. But it's a unity reflected in the world of thought. What the Rebbeinu Shalom did was take the world of thought, or that plane of existence where thought is, and fragment it, shatter it, and present it to you in pieces, so that we understand one idea at a time. We see one perception at a time. And we're involved in the process of putting it together. It's called analysis and synthesis. And as we're engaged in that process, we get greater and greater simcha as we are more and more successful. But that's an aspect of his unity. You see what I'm talking about? That's a piece of that painting. What is it? It's the world of idea. It's the realm of concepts that were fragmented. In God, there is no fragmented. In the Rebbeinu Shalom, there is no such thing as separate ideas. It is all one. But what he did was, he took it all and fragmented and presented to you a world of billion phenomena, billions of events, billions of qualities and properties and interactions and relationships. And he said, you want wisdom? Put it together. It is the pursuit of putting that together. It's the pursuit of understanding of wisdom which gives us a certain pleasure. In fact, it really gives among the greatest pleasure. For those who are somewhat attuned, and who are sensitive to mind and thought, it is an enormous pleasure to understand something when you were in darkness before. And to understand something which really makes sense and which is really true. That's an aspect of the B'nai Shalom which was fragmented. What else was fragmented? But that's a level of mind. What else? Is a level of body. For example, you go to a restaurant, you sit down and you eat something, and the taste is exquisite. Why is it exquisite? You're tasting different things, but what you're tasting is, interestingly enough, a combination of many ingredients put together in a perfect blend to produce exactly this kind of taste. You're tasting a system in a way. It's a system of ingredients which address a system of taste buds in an exact unity, and what you accomplish is an incredible sensation of pleasure. But it's a physical pleasure, but you don't realize that it's a pleasure which is based on yichud, or unity. But it's not the unity of ideas, it's the unity of the sensation of taste. It's the unity of the ingredients themselves. You hear music, you hear a composition. What is sound? What is music? Music is nothing more than a series of sounds. That's all it really is. But what's the difference between music and noise? Noise is also a series of sounds. Because music is a series of sounds or tones in a perfect harmony according to a certain rhythm and in a certain succession, so that each note literally amplifies and reinforces the one right before it, you see. So what you're hearing is not an isolated tone, it's not one tone. What you're hearing is a series of tones, somehow which blend in and just say music. That's what you hear. Even a metronome sounds nice. Why? Because each tone is not seen into itself. Each tone somehow comes after the other one with an exact rhythm. And it's the perception or sensation of exact rhythm which has a certain beauty. And that beauty is unity or yichud. But what really is rhythm? Rhythm is nothing more than the essential repetition of an event in a very regular fashion. You see a beautiful masterpiece of painting. Why is it beautiful? Because what you see in front of you is a series of what? Of visual effects. But it's not an isolated series of visual effects. It's a combination of colors, of shades, of light, of hues that come together to produce an incredible whole or gestalt. But it's the gestalt or the unity of it which has a profound feeling. To see a color itself is not necessarily in and of itself is an isolated thing, but the painting, the landscape, the sky, the sunset, the mountain range, the heavens, there's a unity there. It's a unity of many, many different components and structures coming together in an absolute blend. It's the gestalt, it's the consideration which hits you like a sledgehammer. And all you can say, that is beautiful. What do we see? That the Buddhism has taken the idea of unity, the idea of harmony, the idea of systematic arrangement, and given it many different types of expressions. That's all. Even the idea of physical love itself is the essence of unity between a man and woman. What the Buddhism has done is taken the idea of yichud, unity, and varied it, transformed it in many, many different shades, many different shapes and forms, you see. So that all the different shades give us a different type of pleasure. We do not recognize it in its varying forms, because we don't know, we do not have the capacity to know that there's an underlying process in all types of pleasure. Physical pleasure, you see. What we see is that the Buddhism has taken an aspect of his existence, his absolute unity, and fragmented it, and put it literally in the form of a body, and said, your preoccupation with this unity process, even in physical form, will bring you pleasure. Because fundamentally, and this is the critical idea, God created only one type of pleasure in existence. There is no other. There cannot be no other. The fundamental idea or criteria of existence in which everything is based is the idea of unity. His unity. He fragmented that in many ways. In a physical way and in a spiritual way. And what he did was vary it. And he gave us the position to be involved in it. In all its different manifold ways. Whether you're involved in absolute taiva, whether you have nothing to do with spirituality, you see. When you're involved in what you consider to be total debasement, if you're involved in just eating like a pig because you enjoy the food, you do not understand that that process is a process of yichud, but it's a process which is in a different type of form. And that's what we will get into now. Do we understand this idea? God took the aspect of his own existence, called his yichud, and the perception of that yichud, and made it the focus of all creation. Meaning that this is the only way a created being can experience pleasure. There is no other way. Because the essence of pleasure is God. The essence of Hanor, the essence of Simcha, is the Rebbeinu Shalom himself. There is no other way to experience any type of Simcha or pleasure. But the Rebbeinu Shalom chose the aspect, the root of that would be the aspect of his existence. He could have chosen other things. He could have chosen his Chokhmah. He could have chosen his power. He could have chosen other qualities of his. He did not. He chose the quality of the fact that he is, and there is none other. That he has an absolute unity, and there is nothing else. That he is the summit of all processes, and of all objects, and of all entities. He is the summit. It all goes to him, you see. And what he did was fragment that summit as far as we see. And he said, your entire existence is involved in reaching that summit. Olam Haba is nothing more than climbing mountains. But the mountain that we climb is the attempt to understand that summit through spiritual processes. What does God do when the neshama says, I can't tolerate it, I understand this, I see this yichud, I see it in a spiritual fashion, but I can't tolerate it, because in some way I must contribute it. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, fine, you will do that. And what will I do? I will take my yichud and I will put it into another form, a different way, into a form called guf, physical form, body. And what I will do is, I will create this form of yichud. But this yichud will be very different than the other yichud. There will be two types of fragments. One type of yichud will lead to me. The other type of yichud will lead away from me. In other words, in both cases, we are after the object of yichud. But one leads to God, the other leads away. How? The Rebbeinu created Olam Hazeh, this world. What are the characteristics of our world? The most immediate characteristic that we see is the following. Where is God? If God is the essence of all existence itself, how does he hide? How? Why can't we see him? Why don't we feel him? Why don't we experience him? How is it possible for us who exist not to experience the essential aspect of the process itself? Where did he go? Do you see the power of Olam Hazeh? That is its critical power. Because we all face the question, where is God? But what you must understand, that the question, where is God, had to be created. The Rebbeinu Shalom himself had to create a situation in which he withdrew from. Why? We see it as the reverse. We say, where is God? So we think that the whole process is to find him. You see, that's where it starts. The process starts from finding him. That's not what it is. The real critical issue was, how did he disappear? How was he able to create a world in which he no longer is? At least that was no longer visible. You see, that's what Olam Hazeh is. Olam Hazeh, our world, is a condition or a circumstance where God has hidden himself. so that He's not visible. Is it possible for God to hide Himself? No. It's not. Because the focus of existence is His unity. So how can He hide Himself? The answer is, He doesn't hide Himself in the way that really matters. He's very visible, except that His unity is hidden in physical processes. He constructs a world which has many, many different fragments, many, many different people, many, many different events. We don't have access to seeing His yichud the way it is. We do not see the power which is behind our own world. It's hidden. We experience a shadow of that power because we experience a shadow of that process. As I showed you, the process of Olam Hazeh, the process of Guf, is the process of yichud. But it's so hidden, it's so altered, that we don't recognize that that is the yichud of God. We climb the mountain and we don't recognize that it's the mountain that He's at the summit. Why did He do that? Why did He create a world where the summit is in clouds? Why? Namadiksufa. Because He wants us to approach Him by our own will. He wants us to search Him out. He wants us to look at that yichud of our body and the yichud of our world and understand, Ein od milvado. There is no one for Him. It's like the Prophet says, before me no God was ever formed, and after me there will be none. There is nothing before and after God. Nothing. He is the beginning and end of all existence. Literally. His focus, the yichud, the aspect in the way we know Him. We know God by appreciating His yichud. We know God by understanding that everything in all creation is a reflection of His will and His work. When we see that, we begin to understand who God is. That God is a unity because He is a unity in all of His creation. Because everything in creation reflects who He is. You see. But what the Baruch Shem says is, I don't want you to see this outright. I don't want you to know that I am the summit right away. Because that's Olam Haba. I'm going to hide, you see. And I'm going to let you become involved in all these processes. But in some way I will allow you to deceive yourself. I will allow you to think that you are separate from me, and that you have your own power, and that you can do that which you want. I will allow you to think that your body is separate from me, and that you are your body, and that you have an ultimate control of your own existence. I will allow you to think that your achievements are your own, and that your pleasures are your own. And in some way you are responsible for them, and in some way you can produce them. I will allow you to think all these things. I cannot create a situation where I'm not there, because that's not possible. I am existence. Hence, I cannot create a type of pleasure which is an alternative to me. That's impossible. Just I cannot create an existence which is an alternative to me. I am existence, hence I am the source of all pleasure. I am the source of all joy. I cannot create another alternative. But what I can do is I can hide what I am and give it to you in a different form, so that you will be fooled and deceived if you want to be deceived. So the Baruch Shem therefore creates a world where He's no longer visible. We can only become aware of that which exists through our five senses. Only something we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. That's it. That's your reality. You cannot transcend those five senses. Hence, you cannot transcend a world of spirit. You will never see the world of spirit. You can only see a world of mass and energy, matter and force. That's all, the way we see it. Because God has hidden the spiritual world. He does not want us to see it. Number one. What does the Baruch Shem do? Number two. He gives us the ability to experience pleasure, you see, but the pleasure of the body. And He says, you have a choice. Your choice is to pursue the pleasure of the physical. To pursue that which you think is the limit of reality. Or you have a choice to pursue that which I want you to pursue, which is the Torah itself, which is the knowledge of things which are higher, the knowledge of neshama, the knowledge of those things of the inner unity of all creation itself. You have the choice to pursue the kind of information will allow you to begin to see what history is all about, why I've created the world. And you will have the choice either to subject yourself to my will, meaning to try and get close to me, to do the mitzvahs which I have said, the commandments which I have said, and to attempt to understand the nature of those commandments, who I am, and how I relate to the world. Or you can pursue a life which is devoid of that. You can pursue a life simply which brings you basic physical and emotional pleasure, you see, and develop the assumption that you essentially are an independent person, beyond God, besides God, running your own life, determining your own goals, and going your own way. Doing what you want to do, living exactly as you prescribe. You have that choice. You have the choice either to include me in your life or exclude me in your life. What does it mean to exclude me? To exclude God means to include yourself as the focus of creation. You have that choice. But the amazing thing is that it is a deception of a choice. Because what you don't realize is that no matter which way you go, you are always using the power of God. You are always in some way connecting to the internal process of yichud. Which means that you can literally plug into God and become an atheist. That's the power that He has done. By creating Olam Hazeh, this world, He has created the ability of a person to plug into God and be an absolute atheist. He has given the ability of scientists to come to a deep understanding of reality, to know the inner laws of physics or biology, to see the molecule, DNA, to understand the workings of molecular biology. How is that possible? How is it possible to study all these sciences and all this wisdom, to see an incredible unity, an awesome system that we perceive in the scientific world? How can a biologist, a person who's trained and who devotes his life to working on chokhmah, on science, on essentially unity in creation, suddenly turn around and say, what God? This world comes by chance. How is that possible? How do you look at a painting and say, what painter? There is no painter. How? How do you do that? That's the power of Olam Hazeh. And God, in creating the world, has given that ability. You see, the Baruch Hashem did not create a world devoid of Him. He did not create a world, you see, where His unity does not exist, where this process is invisible. He can't, because that is Him, and He is existence. But He has created a world where the knowledge of that unity can be turned against them, where you can usurp that unity and you can say, I am God. And here is the nutshell. Why is it that the person can say, I am God? That's absurd. Because this essentially is the thing. We have said that the neshama is a reflection of God. True? And because it's a reflection of God, it demands the same kind of activity. It demands to create. It demands to produce. Hence God says, I must put you into a test situation where you can choose. But what is it exactly that the neshama chooses? What the neshama chooses is really the following. Am I a reflection of God? Does that quality in me mean that I'm a reflection of God? Or does the quality in me mean that I am God? That is the essential choice. And that's where the whole Yetzer Hara comes from. What the Yetzer Hara addresses, or what the Yetzer Hara really points to, is the very quality which makes you to be like God. It's the very quality which necessitates, you see, all of existence itself. The fact that God said, I want you to work for Olam Haba because you are like me, and you will not just stand there and take it. That is the very same quality, which is either your redemption or it's your fall. Because the Baruch Hashem says that quality which produces the necessity of Olam Hazeh is the same quality which can destroy you. Because it's the one quality which can deceive you to think that you are God. How can you think you are God? Ask any person who suddenly has become very successful. Just ask him, or even yourself, when you put on a beautiful suit of clothes, or suddenly you've achieved something great, ask yourself what your feeling is. Look into yourself, and you will see a very profound feeling of importance, of value, of esteem, an inordinate amount. That's the feeling that I am God. That I have the ability to do something separate from God. And I have an aspect of control. That I can control my life, and I can control reality without God. You see, that I can determine events by my efforts. That is a deception. You cannot, in any sense of the word, unless it comes on to His power. So what we see is this fact, that it is because of the fact that you were created so great and so high. It is because of the fact that you were created in the image of God that it allows you to escape it and to go away from Him. Because it allows you the deception and the illusion to feel, in a sense, as if you had that kind of power, not the power to create a world, but the power that you are important unto yourself and independent. You see, it allows that illusion and it allows that kind of deception. And this is what the Baruch Hashem really wants. The Baruch Hashem wants to know if you will acknowledge the fact that you are a reflection of Him, and as a reflection of Him, your simcha lies in being close to Him, in doing His will, and in some way coming to understand Him in a greater way, by becoming involved in the process of understanding His yichud, or saying, wait a minute, I have self-awareness. If I have self-awareness, then I have self-importance. And therefore, I am also a power. I am also an independent being. And I have the ability to do things by my own decision. I have a certain control beyond God, where He has no control. Why? Because self-awareness means self-importance. And self-importance comes from the ability in some way to be and to control. That is basically the message of the Yetzer Hara. And that's really what it's all about. That's what the Baruch Hashem really wants to know. He wants to know if you're going to take His yichud to get close to Him, or if you'll take that process and attempt to build a kind of illusion about yourself. An illusion which has the effect of taking you away from Him. It's difficult to fully put down the implications of things that I said and understand it without many, many facts being known before. Because to clearly understand what's being said, you have to know something about the concept of yichud, something about who God is and how He relates to that unity. And these were things that we spent a great deal of time before. So I am not 100% certain about how well what I said has come across, because, like I say, basically it's meant for the people who have been here already. But the critical ideas which you can understand and which does come out from what I'm saying is the following: is that the essential focus of existence is the aspect which God shows His unity. It's the perception of that unity. By understanding things as they move together in whatever form, that is our way of understanding God. Because it's our way of seeing that there is one creator, there is one hand behind everything. And this is the basic focus of creation. It is the basic focus of all types of pleasure, no matter what it is, whether it's pleasure of the body or it's pleasure of the soul. There is no alternative form. And that what the Baruch Hashem did with this kind of process was put it in two different forms. A form which is revealed and a form which is hidden. As we exist in our life, we do not see, or we are not involved in that process in its revealed form. You see, we are more or less involved in that process in its hidden form. And since we're involved in that process in its hidden form, we are easily capable of being deceived and forgetting what that process really is and who is behind that process. But if you analyze your own existence, and it's the things which make you feel good, you will see that we are always dealing with the aspect of unity or the approach to greater and greater systemization or harmony. You see, shalom, peace, harmony, this is what we're all striving for. And it's the attainment of shalom, is the attainment of real unity. Because peace essentially is the absence of conflict. And it comes from the word shalom. The word shalom means perfection or whole. When do we really achieve peace? When do we really achieve true peace? We achieve true peace when there is no more conflict. But when is there no more conflict? When our beings are composed of one thing, one substance. When we only have one dimension. As long as we are beings of two dimensions, of a soul and a body, we will never experience a unity in being. We will therefore never experience peace. It is not possible. We were created with a war. We were created in conflict. That's the essence of what it means to be human. No other being in creation was created like that. As I said before, every other thing which is created was created homogeneously, meaning it was created as one substance. Malachim, angels, they are spiritual beings, and they are one type of spiritual being. Everything, all the physical universe, everything which exists, animals, plants, and so on, are physical beings, but they are total physical beings. Man is the only being who is created with two opposing substances. Two substances that have literally nothing to do with each other. And these two substances, physical and spiritual, the neshama and the ruh, were forced to be merged together. They were wedded together in an eternal bond, such that it is not possible to separate them. And what the Baruch Hashem says is the following, that the choice is to follow. Either one substance must dominate on the other substance. And as it dominates, it will gradually merge. But which way it goes is up to the person. Your spiritual substance can dominate the physical, and as it does that, it will reach a point in time when the physical itself becomes spiritual. Then you will become one whole person. Or your physical part can dominate, and it will drag the neshama down completely itself. And the human being will become a replica of a physical entity. Really. So therefore, essentially, the choice is that. The choice and the goal is to make yourself into one type of being. Unity. It's to remove the fragment and resurrect the divided being. But how you resurrect it, in what direction you resurrect it, is dependent on you. You can either resurrect it in the spiritual direction, in the world of neshama, and in doing that, you do that by attaching yourself to the Baruch Hashem, by attaching yourself to spiritual prophecy, Torah, mitzvahs, and everything else which that implies. Or you can attach yourself to the physical universe completely, and attach yourself to the hidden spirituality. And by doing that, you force the neshama to go down with the body. And when it does that, it breeds for great destruction, because what it does is it rips the neshama out from its root. The attainment of shalom, or peace, is the attainment of uniformity in being, and that is attained through your free will and your choice. Another way of saying it is the attainment of the ability to see God and to know Him in the way that He wants us to know Him depends on how we want to view Him. We can view Him through our souls, hence we can view Him through the yichud, which can be revealed, or we can view Him through our body. And by seeing God through our body, with our body, means not to see God at all. It means to see ourselves only as the center of the universe and the center of creation. And that's a drastic mistake. But this is one key idea of what the nature of our world is like. Next time, what I want to discuss is a different idea in terms of some specifics of what the Bnei Shem actually did in constructing our world itself. What he had to do to the neshama to make our world possible. And some of the key aspects of what the Yetzer is and how the Yetzer functions through the body. And why the Yetzer needs a body to function. The Yetzer cannot address itself to the neshama. It needs a body, you see. And because of that, the Bnei Shem created the body to give it that base. And next time we will discuss this particular kind of problem. Are there any questions? Yeah.
You're saying the only reason the body is created is to have so that we could be challenged with the Yetzer?
Only. That's the only reason. There is no other reason. The Yetzer cannot exist without the body. Oh, the evil inclination. The evil inclination. Put it this way. Let me explain it this way. There exists a force in the world called the Yetzer Hara. I don't have a blackboard, so I can't write these things down. The word Yetzer literally means in English, evil inclination. Ra means evil, Yetzer means inclination. There's a force that was created in the world called the evil inclination. What is that? It is a power which addresses itself to you and tries to say that you are the center of creation. That's it. You are the most important thing in creation. Everything revolves around you. And you have an ability about you which is independent from everything else. That there's an aspect of your being which does not need anything else, including God. It is true, God created you. But you can do certain things on your own without anyone else. Literally. Hence you have certain powers which are absolute. That is what the Yetzer Hara says. Now basically, he can only say that to you because you're in a body. That's why. If you were only a neshama, only a soul, as you were before you entered the body, you see, he could not come over you and say that to you. You would laugh it off. I mean, it would be an absolute absurdity. Because only while you're in the body is such an idea possible. Only while you're in the body and God is hidden can you entertain the thought that you have a true importance by yourself, you see, and that you have a true power and a true control over certain types of situations. Yeah.
Is the body itself a free body?
Yeah. Well, let me. No. Yes and no. Yes and no. It is not a klipa. Well, it's not a klipa, but it is a product of the Yetzer Hara. But it's not a klipa. And that is explain what that is.
Why is there?
Well, it's too long. But you want to know how. Well, the body was created a certain way. The question is, how was the body created? How was the soul created, and how was the body created? You see, that's something we'll have to discuss next week. You see, where does it come from? The body itself. Yes.
Wouldn't it be more correct to say that the Yetzer Hara uses the body as a tool for its distraction?
Yes. It would be correct to say that. But it is also correct to say, a little beyond that the body itself comes from the Yetzer Hara. There's an aspect of that truth too. But
sounds like it's a good trick.
well, it's a different aspect of the Yetzer Hara, but it will require a much longer discussion. There's an aspect. Well, next week we'll begin to analyze what is the Yetzer Hara, who is he, and how does he function, and we'll explore the concept of how it relates to the body.
Why are there going to be bodies at time of Sophia SM18?
The question which is being asked is an excellent question. It's really a question that anyone. The question that he's asking, if I may, I'd like to just put his question in a different form and show you the power that it really has. But the real question is, and it's a question that everyone should ask, is the following. It's very simple this. Well, okay, there's something in Judaism called Tchiyas HaMesim. What is Tchiyas HaMesim? Tchiyas HaMesim in English means resurrection of the dead. I don't know if you've heard the term. Most of you have heard the term. Some people may have not heard it. What is resurrection of the dead? It is a cardinal belief in Judaism, a cardinal belief that there will come a time in the Yemot Mashiach, after the Mashiach comes, not before, a certain number of years in the Messianic period, when a very strange thing will happen, an unbelievable thing will happen. Death will cease from man, number one, and all those people who have already died will be restored to life. That means all those cemeteries will become vacant. Now, you may think that I'm talking about something out of Friday the 13th or some mad guru picture, one of these, right? I'm not. It is a cardinal Jewish belief that the Rebbeinu Shalom will give back life to everybody so that all those who have died will again be resurrected. That is this is not a minor Jewish belief. This is a central Jewish belief. It is so central that the Rambam says, whoever does not believe it will not wake up. Now he is asking a very, very profound question, and that is, why does anyone have to wake up? Why does the dead come back? Why? Because based on what I'm saying, there's no purpose. Why? What did I just say? I said that the Rebbeinu wants to give the neshama, or the soul, an eternal place, right? And he creates the body, right? So that he puts the soul into the body, so that the body is what? Is the place where the Yetzer Hara can function, right? And attempt to seduce the person to do sins. But the truth of the matter is, once the person dies, right? You don't need the body anymore. It serves its purpose. The entire function of the body was to allow the circumstances of trial or nesoyim to take place, right? It was to provide, it was a way in which God can hide himself. God hides himself through the body. I think that's the best way I can say it. Why does God want to hide himself? So that we're forced to look for him. Why does he want us to look for him? So that when we find him, we can say that we found him. Not that he reveals himself. You see what I'm saying? Simplest way to say it. But the question is, if the whole purpose of the body is so that he can hide himself, so that we find him on our own, once a person dies and is released from the body and is a neshama, why does that neshama have to go back into the body? What purpose is there for? I believe that's what you're saying.
Also, if you're saying that's the only purpose for the body.
Right. Exactly. Correlated to the question is, there will be a time when there will be no Yetzer Hara at all, and that will be an Olam Haba. So therefore, what is the whole purpose of the body for, really? Why do people have to wake up? Why do people have to why does the dead have to be resurrected? Yes.
This is very confusing.
Okay.
We talk about transformation, the resurrection of the dead. And we have basic beliefs, especially Kabbalistic beliefs in your ruling. We've all been here before.
Right. So you want to know which body gets up?
Yeah. I'm not going to have had 10 good rulings.
Which one gets up? That's what you want to know. Okay. That's a good question. But that's not... That's
all get up and now
no. Right. Only one body gets up. No, that's the point. Which reincarnation gets up? The world doesn't know. Gilgul means reincarnation. In other words, reincarnation. In other words, it is also a Jewish belief, or in a Kabbalistic understanding, is that a person is sent down to this world. Why? To find God, as I've explained it. Let's say he fails, then he probably will be sent down again to go through the same process. That in Hebrew is called Gilgul. Gilgul means repetition, or circular repetition. In English we say reincarnation, or transmigration of souls. Okay, now the question is, if you were a person that once existed before, and the answer is you were, and there is the resurrection of the dead, who gets up? If you existed in the 12th century, you were some Jewish person in the 12th century, and you are now somebody in the 20th century, and there is resurrection of the dead, who gets up? Very good question. But that is a secondary question. That's a nice question. But this is the fundamental question. Why get up at all? The more fundamental question is, why get up at all? Once we understand why get up at all, we hope that it would answer, then who gets up? One is saying one, we will explain the other. No, I will not answer your question until we understand the basic idea first. You see. No, yeah, but that's the question. According to what I'm saying, is I'm telling you that there's a certain purpose of the body. The body has a certain function. Its function is to let God hide. Its function is for you to allow you to seek God. You see, that's its function. Once its function is finished, there is no other need for it, is there? Once a person is dead and he's finished his 120 years of life, God knows basically at that point in time what he's chosen. Right? So therefore God should take that neshama and put it into Olam Haba, or wherever he puts it, depending on what it deserves, right? Why did he put that neshama again into a guf? No, but that's not the point. No, I'm not talking about Gilgul. Resurrection of the dead is not Gilgul. Gilgul means you're reincarnated in a different body. You see, the question more fundamentally is, you see, let's say there was no such thing as Gilgul. Let's say there was no such thing as reincarnation. Everybody's born once, you die, and that's it. You got one chance, right? There still is a cardinal Jewish belief that that body will get up. Let's not confuse the two issues.
It's not two issues,
Really one. But at our point, it's really, one issue is not critical, the other is. The critical issue is, what is the purpose for the resurrection of the dead? That's the main issue. The secondary issue is, given that necessity, which body in the end stands up? Because of the necessity of something called reincarnation, which has to do with a whole different reason. You see, the purpose of reincarnation is to give a person a second chance. You see, and then go through the rounds again and see what he does. The resurrection of the dead will occur at a time when everything is finished, when there is no more Yetzer Hara. What's the purpose of that? Wait, you see what I'm saying? Why does everyone, you know that in the times of Mashiach, the entire generation of the flood, the whole generation of the Midbar, you know all those people that died with Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert, you know they can all get up again? You know that? Yes, that's right. You know that you're going to see Moshe Rabbeinu one day in the flesh? You know that? You know that you will see Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I'm not even talking about great-great-grandparents. I'm not even talking about the David, Bobbis. I'm not talking about that. You will see Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in the flesh someday. You know that?
We don't deserve it.
No, the assumption is you observe it. No, the assumption is observe it.
What
Which,
you're assuming is that they never reincarnated.
who? No. No, no. You
No.
confuse me. One second, son.
I mean, you know,
Reincarnation, let me explain to you something. Reincarnation means is that a certain neshama, let's say a neshama goes down into a certain body. Let's take, for example, yourself. You are a female, correct? Let's say, for example, in the 12th century, you are another female, right? And at that time you were called Rachel. I don't know what the Hebrew name now, but you were once a person with the name of Rachel. Now, why are you back? Well, okay, you're back because you haven't finished your job. But you're back as what? Are you back as that same person exactly? No. You don't look like that original Rachel did. She had a different body. She looked differently. The soul is the same. Similar. But even then it's not totally the same. But let's say fundamentally that's not totally true. But let's grant that your soul is the same. But you're not in the same body. You're not the same person. You see. You exist now in the 20th century. You don't have the same personality now as what you had then. It's a different person. Now you may say, if it's a different person, so well, what is our connection then? What is it of me that goes through what is it of me that remains constant? If I look differently in a different body, you see. And if I was a different personality, so what element has remained constant, such that you're saying that I was that person? You see what I'm saying?
I know what that is. It's very personal thing.
Well, it doesn't have to be personal. It's quite understandable. No, there is something called koyach hanefesh, which equates you and all your gugulim. It means that you are not the same person as you were physically. You don't look like that person. You are not the same person as you were psychologically or emotionally. You are not even the same person as you were intellectually. What is the common element between you and that person? Something called koyach hanefesh, meaning that the inner power of your neshama and the directions in which your neshama, I'll explain this class once. I think the desire to do good and the desire for truth are the critical qualities of your neshama. The two critical qualities in which you can identify two neshamas is the following. What is its desire for truth? And what is its desire for goodness, to do good? You see, that is the same thing as you are. That is the same neshama as you were. You see, and it is that which God is interested. God is not concerned with the way you look.
I know.
He's concerned with your essence. And your essence is what? Is the quality of your truth. It's the quality of your goodness. It's the quality of your good deeds. It's the quality of your inner wisdom. That's what God is concerned with. He is not concerned with your IQ
I know that.
or your financial status.
I know that too.
Okay.
All I want to know is
Now,
how the body is in different directions, right?
now the other question, which is what we're being asked, which is more fundamental, is the following. The other question which is being asked, which is the following, is that, forget about reincarnation. Let's assume a person is born once, and he dies once, and that's the beginning and the end of the matter. I say that the purpose of the body is to allow the Yetzer Hara to function, is to give the alternative to God, so that you'll choose a different path. To put it perhaps a little more poetically, it's a way in which God hides. Okay? That's the purpose. Once a person dies, and his test is over, and he has told God essentially what his choice was, God then must judge that soul and determine what kind of spiritual life it will get. There is no purpose in taking that soul and putting it back down on the earth. You see what I'm saying? At all.
So if you were,
Where do we get that? Sure, it's good. You never know. You see bottles lying around. You know? I don't know.
Russian water.
Thank you. There were two separate ideas. The need for reincarnation is the need to give a person a second chance. Beyond that idea is also the concept that everyone will be resurrected. That's the concept. At a time when God no longer has to know what you're choosing. That's what Chiyas HaMesim is. So the question is, what is the purpose of that? I can understand why you must be shifted into different bodies to give you a number of different chances. But once you've finished your job, once we know what you are, right? Once we've reached the end of your road as a being, as an neshama, there's no more reason to bring you back down, is there? There isn't. No. But yet, there will become a last and final time that you will come back down and you will stay down without ever dying again. That's what Chiyas HaMesim is. Why?
You don't understand out of order.
The answer to that lies several shurim up ahead. Yes.
Can you give us some idea, we won't understand when we're saying that?
Ponder the question. Okay? Now, ponder the question. It is my policy, as you know, to give full explanations for things. Not, I don't want to give a. It is.
Done that on several occasions, giving us little things.
Have I done that? Have I done that? This one. Let me tell you.
That's what we thought about all week and why, and then you'll tell us.
To know the answer to that question, you have to know many, many fundamental ideas which I have never discussed. And the answer to that question is critically tied up with the whole concept of Mashiach. Which means that there's a great deal of information that I have to give you to have a clear knowledge of that question. But I promise you that if you return, I will answer that question so that you will have a very clear understanding of what it is. You will know exactly what Chiyas HaMesim is. You will know exactly its connection to the Mashiach. And you will have a very different type of understanding than you have ever had before. So in one way, the answer to that question, in a certain sense, is the beginning of the view of the panoramic sweep of all creation. You see, because that question will also give us a much deeper understanding of the whole situation of the first man, Adam HaRishon, and what happened. Because we must remember that it all started with him, and all these concepts somehow emerged from him. So we've got to analyze all this together. You see. Are there any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. Do you choose the body you come into, or God chooses for you?
No, the Rebbeinu chooses that body. But that has to do with her question. Which body? And according to which criteria? When you come back, can you choose which Gilgal? No, I don't believe that. No. You
can't choose for you.
The Buddha, yeah. It's more than the Buddha. It's not an arbitrary ruling, well, no, I want you here and not there. It's not that. It has to do with the relationship that you had. It has to do with the function that you did with the different bodies. It has to do with the level that you achieved with the different bodies. So therefore, the one that you achieve the highest level with, that's the one that you come back in.
What about what I have? Wait, I would have a question.
Yeah, again.
Okay, the other question is,
Oh, that's right, that's the question.
is it possible that you were God at one Gilgal and then you were Jew in another?
Oh.
And which one is my God?
you have something to eat before you came here or something? Something powerful or something? I will say this. What's implied in your question is that, but there's several things implied. One, in according to Torah, can a person come back as an animal or as an inanimate object? Even though you didn't ask it, it's subsumed in your question. And the answer is yes. A person can come back as an animal and live and die as an animal, never being a human being. Now, why that is something we will have to discuss. The second question you're saying, can a person come back as a guy? The answer is yes. But then the question is he really a guy?
Or is he really Jew?
The ultimate question is, what really is a guy and what really is a Jew?
She's asking the other way around.
But she's asking she's asking from, in other words, what we have to explore to answer that question is, really, what is a guy and what is a Jew, really, to begin with, you see. And that's what we have to understand, what is this distinction between the two, number one, and number two, what is the cross-migration? Are cross-migration possible between Goyim and Jews or not? You see.
What is the distinction?
A Goyim and Jew. Yeah, I've got 10 shoes on that.
A person
You don't realize that these questions are extremely important questions, and I'm overjoyed that you're asking it. Thank God you're thinking. Really. But to really understand the matter well, I don't want you to go out with a superficial understanding of it. I want you to go out with a very deep grasp of the answer to that question. You see, that will take a number of shurim. One of the things that I try and tell the people who come is, and the Rambam says this, and something that you have to, we live in a world of instant gratification. We want everything now, or rather yesterday, you see. And, this may be true of certain things we can get now, but chokhmah, or wisdom, understanding, cannot be gotten in an instant. Because the mind doesn't work that way. The mind works progressively by different levels. So, I don't want to give you superficial answers, which I can easily do. I can give you yes or no answers, and I can give you things which are undefined. I don't want to do that. I want to give you an answer which is very precise, very rigorous, and which will allow you to answer at least another dozen questions at the same time. You see. To do that, we must be patient, and we must be persistent. You see. That's the key. The key to wisdom is persistence and patience. Is to constantly preoccupy yourself with the question and be involved in each one of the steps which are required to obtain them. And that's what it is. That's why these shurim is a series, progressive series, where it gets more and more advanced. But I will answer that question, not too far up ahead. But you can't even deal with that question until first deal with his question. His question is more fundamental, really.
What was his question?
His question is, why is there resurrection of the dead?
Are we still been asked?
We didn't answer that, no. Your question is a very profound question. You don't realize how profound your question is. I'll put it in a form which will show you what it is. Because I'll ask you a question. The first man, his name was Adam Rishon, right? Was he Jewish or was he a guy? Right? What do you think? You don't have to be right. What do you think? Noah. You know Noah. You heard of Noah, right? You heard of Noah. Was he Jewish or was he a guy?
Noah was Jew, the first person. I don't think he had any religion. I don't think there was a religion. He was the creation of God.
No, that's not true. What do you mean there's no religion? With the creation of God, you don't think he was aware of God? Of course he was aware of God. Adam, first man, would talk to God. God would say to him, I don't want to eat from the tree of life. And God said that to him directly. He was in such a high level that he could talk to God. We can't even do that anymore.
I don't know if he was a Jew.
Right, but you don't know. Now let me ask you this question. Was Avraham Avinu Jewish?
Yes.
No, he wasn't.
Start with him.
No,
And he
wasn't.
started.
Started what? He didn't start Judaism. That's not true. Not in the way we know it. Technically speaking, Adam wasn't Jewish. Noach wasn't Jewish, and Avraham wasn't Jewish. Does that mean that they were goyim? Chas v'sholom. Of course they weren't goyim. What were they? That is the implication of your question. The question is not so much if they were Jewish or goyim. The question is, what was he really? And I'll tell you something even better. Okay? Very simple. Adam Rishon was given a certain mitzvah, wasn't he? The Baruch Hu said to him, I don't want you to eat from the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge. I don't want you to eat from it. You see. Did Adam wind up eating from it? Yes. That's called the fall of Adam. Adam sinned. Okay? Now, what happens if Adam didn't eat from it? Let's say he would have listened to God. What would have happened?
You would have never had that.
That's number one. But even more than that, what would have happened?
Olam haba.
No, he had a Yetzer Hara, or else he wouldn't have that in Stoyan. He was given a choice. He already had a Yetzer Hara. Yes. Well, almost. The answer is that if Adam Rishon had not done the Chet, he would have gone to Olam Haba. We would not have been around. There would never been such a thing as Jew and Goy. The distinction of man into two different species, Jew and Goy, would never have existed. Now, I ask you, did God want Adam to sin? No. Chas v'shalom. Now, if the Baruch Hu would have taken Adam and put him into Olam Haba right then and there, that means the Baruch Hu never wanted a distinction between Jew and Goy. Okay. The essential point is what we have to investigate is what is a Jew and what is a Goy. What exactly is the status of this and what is the definition of that? And that, you'll understand this better as we go along. Okay? But that's a very important question. And the other question that you've been asking, the migration of the Neshama from one back and forth to the other. You see, that's something else. And the answer is, a Jew can come back as a Goy. You see, it is possible. You see. But a Goy cannot come back as a Jew. The reverse is not possible.
So that the Jew
What I mean, I have to explain this later. What?
What about the Jew comes back as a Goy, and then he can't come back as a Jew after?
No, he can.
No, it's a Jew.
A person could come back as an animal or in an animal.
What's that?
A person could come
In
back
an animal.
as an animal or in an animal.
That was wrong.
It's not the same thing. Because the neshama could know that he's in the animal and suffering.
In an animal.
Not an animal. So as a Goy or in a Goy.
It's more like in a Goy.
That's a good point. More like in a
Personal
Goy.
experience in a Goy, not as a Goy.
Right. Okay. Next week, same time, same station.
Earlier.
But I don't know. Well, upstairs. Yeah, upstairs. I think we like it better upstairs. I have a blackboard upstairs. It's cooler upstairs, and it's also easier talk. This is a very long distance kind of thing. Okay. What's that?
He's asking